Justin, let's dive in. We're already recording. I was really excited to get a copy of your book before it was officially available to the public. And it's about the old Aesop's fable of the tortoise and the hare. Oh, I love it. For listeners that are listening, you are wearing a shirt with tortoises on it right now. Love that. Okay, so I guess here from the start and talking about that story. Well, your book is called Stop Chasing, Start Creating. I'm curious to know here from the start, like, what is it that we're chasing and why should we be creating instead?
Yeah, so if I could simplify, first of all, thank you for having me back.
Yeah.
I'm really thankful for that. You are such a special, brilliant soul, and I'm grateful to be able to connect with you. And so the thing that I love, it speaks to you. So when I thought of this, I was like, oh my gosh, this is perfect for you all and your
Oh,
audience.
yeah.
Is that we are at a macro level, we are chasing things externally. It's
Hmm.
external validation, right? That could be applause, that could be approval, that could be promotion, that could be being perfect, whatever that thing that is external to us
Hmm.
versus creating speaks to the internal alignment. And that's what
Yeah.
things that are aligned with our values. What do we need to say no to in order to grow through, right? Like, what are the things that are that I need to work through for myself that are now internally focused that might not ever get external validation, or they may. So that's the thing. So how do we shift from how do we chase less external validation and create more internal alignment is the focal premise of the book.
Okay. And so then going into the backdrop of the fable, the tortoise
Yeah.
and the hare, why did you use this old tale in a modern way, I guess?
Yes. I love that question because so about 10 years I've been
Mhm.
actually telling people to be the tortoise, right?
Mm,
Because it's one of my favorite fables always growing up, but I've always shared we've gotten it wrong, that we've mislabeled
yeah.
the tortoise, that we labeled the
Mm,
tortoise slow and steady. Now, it's half true.
sure.
The tortoise was never slow. The slow is a comparison term. Because if it was the
Mm,
tortoise and the snail, we would be like, man, that tortoise sure was fast, right?
sure.
But
Yeah,
because
yeah.
because it's comparison, so but the tortoise was steady, the tortoise was wise, the tortoise was intentional and strategic.
Hmm.
And I often wanted to imagine the story different because I was like, we always get the hero stories where we know where they start, where they ended out, but we never know where they came from.
Yeah.
Right. And so as I
Mm,
reimagined the story, I was like, I wonder what the tortoise, like, I literally asked myself this question. I wonder what the tortoise was like before he became the tortoise that we all know
mm,
and love. And I was
yeah.
like, well, maybe he wasn't as steady or wise or strategic
Hmm.
as he grew into. And that
Hmm.
became the backdrop of the story of he was chasing approval, recognition, being seen because no one saw him as Tano. And he had to learn to become the steady, strategic tortoise through his own journey, through failure, and even through the mentorship of Petra, the HR badger, who helps him to work through his own journey. So that became the backdrop of just reimagining how he became who he became.
Hmm. We got a bit into your background in that last conversation, which I'll be sure to link in the show notes for
Yeah.
listeners. And just kind of you going back through the history of where you
Yeah.
came from. You're welcome to briefly reshare that here. But
Yeah.
I'm curious, before we get into some of the practicals for listeners and how they can start creating themselves and stop chasing other people's versions of success, like I would love for you to share, and however much vulnerability you'd like,
Yeah.
if this came from personal experience. Like, are you seeing yourself as that tortoise? Were you in those seasons prior that you're describing here?
Yeah. So I'll take you 2 layers deep, right? We're gonna do
Okay. Yeah.
the layers. One layer that I've always shared with people is that I chose to study tortoises for a year. I do a thing called a birthday challenge where every birthday I challenge myself to do one thing I've never have done. And this past year was to study tortoises. And so I got books on it, studied the history. I went to the Galapagos for a week just to study the giant tortoises. It's really, really phenomenal thing. And I realized that I am more a hare than I am a tortoise. And I initially wanted to study tortoises so I could be more strategic, steady, and intentional. And then as I told the story, it got into a little bit of my backstory of Tano struggling with his dad not being there. And wow, I'm feeling the emotions already. And because his dad wasn't there, he felt he had to prove himself. He had to prove his worth. And so he struggled with, like, why am I not being seen? Why am I not being valued? Why does it feel like Harold the Hare effortlessly shows up and everybody loves him, but he has to try harder to
Yeah.
get the permission to exist in a way that he wants to. And so that was my story, right? Through things from the abandonment of my dad, and in many ways of not what I desired,
Sure.
to being bullied, to being physically abused, and even an aspect of emotionally abused, and all of these pieces, right? There's a lot of good that happened too. So it's not a sad sob story, but it is what I found myself doing for many years of my life, and I have to put it in check, is I spent so much time trying to prove my worth that I didn't know how to be my worth. And that's what Tano struggled with, is that he was trying to prove his worth, rather than simply being it and choosing to do the things that were meaningful for him, not the things that were going to be the shiniest, not the thing that might have gotten the most visibility, but the things that were absolutely meaningful for him. And so it is kind of an ode to my backstory and the journey and struggles and pain that I've been through. But I think what I've heard from other people who've read it is like they've connected to different characters in the story in different ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you sharing that. And I know that emotion, I mean, I'm glad that you're allowing it to come out, because I know it's going to touch other people that are listening that have similar stories. And that, I don't know, we see, I think in your search for finding like meaning and validation, accomplishment, we do find that it's never enough.
No,
but why
never.
is it that it's never enough?
Yeah. One of the things that I feel, and I love this book, one of my mentors, Dan Sullivan, a strategic coach, wrote the book, The Gap in the Game, right? And I love the concept, because he says we have a starting point, we have this ideal, and then we have where we are. And he's like, most times we measure between the gap. It's where we are and the ideal. And it's funny thing, the ideal keeps moving, right? We don't get there and be like, oh, all right, like people are like, oh, I have the house that I want now. Everything's perfect, right? No, we then 6 months later, like, oh, I wish I would have had this part of the house, right? Or we have the car that we always wanted, right? That's why I love the aspect of just the minimalist of asking the questions of what can we get rid of as a way to gain more of who we are. So that's one piece of it. So how do we measure more of the gain rather than the gap, right? What's there versus what's missing? I think another component to this is that we all at times can struggle with, because so much of our world is about external validation and praise and things, that we haven't taken the time to really ask the question of, what do I really want?
Yeah.
What's meaningful for me? I mean, in the book Tano and in the fable, he's really passionate about this mentoring program. But all his friends and people are like, but that's not a high visibility thing. Like, why are you doing that? Like, what's that for? And then he starts to even struggle deeper with like, wait a minute, the numbers aren't the way he wants them to. And it's not about the impact he can have. It's about the perception of, is he doing the right thing? And he struggles with like, should I keep doing this? Because there's times where people are coming and there's times people aren't. And we all struggle with that, right? Where we're putting on things or events, or we're doing things, and the perception, we want to be stronger than the actual impact. And so it's kind of a reclaiming of the true alignment of what's meaningful for me, not because it's meaningful for other people, because it's meaningful for me. Let me give you a quick example in real life of there's two things that I have identified by my own experience. There's a lot more that people do for other people that are very expensive. Number one, engagement ring.
Yes.
Right? People don't ask the question, like, is a diamond really do I want a diamond, or do I want a birthstone, or do I want something off of Amazon, right? It's almost like we want a ring so we could be like, hey, look what I have, right? And for people to be impressed by that ring. And the other thing, which is actually tied to it, is weddings. is that we can often do weddings to
Yes.
impress other people. Right? So we want people to be like, that was the best wedding of the year. And we have all these things. And I remember, when I got married for the first time, probably our budget was probably like $1,000 because I just graduated college and I started picking up on like, why am I putting on a wedding for other people? Like, why can't it be what I want? So we didn't have a sit down eat. We had, heavy hors d'oeuvres.
Okay.
We did it right at the space we did it. And it's like, it was, it wasn't the wedding of the year, but I realized I didn't want to do a wedding of the year that I'd be paying for years later.
Sure.
And it was really about other people rather than what I wanted. So we had dancing at mine. People had a lot of fun. There was like, anyway, so that's just a real life example of how we can focus on external validation rather than internal alignment.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you shared that example because I think my next question for you is this idea of pursuing the excellence or pursuing the moments for ourselves versus constantly chasing the approval. And how have you figured that out? Like, what are some simple ways that we can figure that out? I really think that is such a challenge. I have to check myself sometimes, whether it's the podcast. And I think this is just a side note. I would say because I set out with this podcast just to do it for fun, like this was just fun. And then it started getting some traction and then it was like very successful. And it was never enough to hit a certain rank in the chart. It was like, okay, let's go. Let's hit it higher. And now it's like, it is so oversaturated in the podcast world that it's the numbers that I see myself at. I try not to even look at it anymore because I'm like, am I still showing up and creating good content? Is this a value? And I have to say, is this a value and is it worthwhile? Yes. And if it's not, then I'm going to stop. But I have to just kind of put the numbers aside, even though it's exciting.
Right. Yes. And what I love what you shared, it's never devoid of it, right? It's never devoid of external validation. So I want to be very careful. I'm not saying external validation is bad. I am saying depending on it only is the source of stress, burnout, and just hard times. Because to your point, it's never enough. So I want to give three practical things that people can do.
Okay.
One is to start by asking and doing my own internal alignment of what are my values? What are the things that are absolutely meaningful for me? And what I will make sure that each of your listeners gets is that we're starting this challenge called the Meaningful 67 Challenge. And one of the first pages in it is this meaningful values assessment that allows people to work through what are the things that are really valuable to them, right? And to identify their top 5 and ask the questions, do my days align with this? The things that I said are the most valuable. Am I putting the effort, focus, intention to it? So that's number 1. Number 2 is a simple practice that we call the unseen practice. And again, we'll provide the handout for this as well. But the unseen practice essentially is develop a rhythm, whether you do it daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, whatever your rhythm is, where you do something with the sole intention of just having an impact without being seen. It could be you write an anonymous note to somebody and no one knows it was you. And you don't like post it on social media. Like, I wrote an anonymous note to somebody and this was the note, right? And but it really is for just feeding that internal alignment of doing good because it's good to me. And that is one simple practice but it's developing the rhythm of it, not a one-time thing. And the third thing is by asking the question. I'll give you things that you can do in places, right? Social media, other places. Would I post this? Would I say this? Would I share this if it was never reposted?
Yeah.
If no one liked it?
Yeah.
But I knew it had impact. And I'll kind of summarize that in a story. So I went to Curacao to celebrate my anniversary with my wife. And we went to Curacao, had a great time. I did a cliff dive where I lost my Apple Watch. We won't talk about that.
Oh, no.
I hit the water and I didn't realize like it was gone. I was like, no. But I did the cliff dive and I posted about doing things that scare us because I was scared up there. It was like 40 feet, whatever. Right?
Yeah.
And so posted. And then we were in Miami airport. I ran into this guy, Reggie, who I hadn't seen in years, right? Since college days. And I was like, oh, what's up, Reggie? It's good to see you. And he was running. He was like, oh, man, Justin, man, I loved the cliff dive you did, the cliff jump, not dive, in Curacao. Man, it was really cool, man. He's like, yeah, man, I learned a lot from it. And, I'm going to apply some aspects to my life. And then he like, I got to go, man. I'll talk to you later. And what do you think I did first? I went to the post.
Okay.
And I looked. Did Reggie like it? No. Did Reggie
Oh,
comment on it?
interesting.
Nope. But Reggie was impacted by it. And that hit me
Mm,
so hard, Diane, because I realized
mm.
that I was so just focused on, is it liked, is it shared, are people engaging with it? Did I get the right analytics? That I wasn't asking the question, is it providing the impact that I intended?
Yeah,
And
such a
that
good
was a
point.
great way of like, now I try my best when I go into my post, if I'm able to, like Instagram and other places, to turn off the likes and to turn off the likes and to turn off the share numbers,
Hmm.
right? Because I
Hmm.
want to ask the question for all of us to ask, especially social media as a practical example. Would I post this if no one shared it, if no one commented, and no one liked it?
Hmm.
Yeah, that's a way that we can ask about internal alignment.
That's so good and such a better story than what I was going to share. I was going to be like, when we moved to our house, we're like 40 minutes out of Columbus now, and I
Yeah.
was going to run this race, this half marathon that I hadn't trained for, but I was like, oh, like I really, basically, it came down to it was raining, and it was like, if I couldn't post about this, would I still do it? And the
Yeah.
answer was no. So
Yes.
I flipped over and I went back to bed. I was like, I'm not. I was like, I'm literally doing this for the clout. So, but your story is way better and not as vain. That's
Well, I like your story too. It has meaning.
okay. No, it was a good check for me. Again, what is our motivation?
Yeah.
External isn't always bad, but yeah, it's just we can't always be living for the external praise. It is,
Yeah.
you're right. Like, because being a parent, even, which is kind of leading me into my next question, I want to know about how we can do this to show our children a good example. But
Yeah.
being, I'm not quite a stay-at-home mom, but I'm in the house quite a bit. I don't necessarily receive the praise here as I might at a work environment.
Right.
You just have to keep going. You just keep
Yeah.
going. You're like that tortoise.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think, and there's a lot that I've applied from my own life to parenting, right?
Yeah.
Because one of the things, the premise of our research and even in the book is, how do we stop trying to wait to find or chase meaning rather than to create it ourselves? And so this whole concept
Yeah.
of creating meaning comes from within rather than outside in. And so there are these things I ask myself. It's like, how do I create meaning from my experience with my dad?
Mm.
Right. And so we can create meaning. There's a body of research called sense making. And one of the things that we do to sense make is like, I was like, well, what can I learn from my dad's absence? And
Mhm.
one of the things that I've chosen to lean into, Diane, is that I wanted to be a present father. And so I had to ask the question of, what does presence look like for me?
Yeah.
Right. And so I said, well, presence looks like not being on the phone when I pick up my kids or drop them off, so that we're
Mm.
talking about our day. What are you looking forward to today? We're doing devotions, we're doing different things, and we're talking about what were the highlights of your day and sharing it. Presence looks like dinner time without the phone. And that looked like, so I actually use, not everybody's a fan of ChatGPT or AI, but I actually want to use AI for good. And so I've actually put in a prompt where every night at dinner, I have it give me a prompt of 3 questions and a bonus,
Oh.
where we're talking and we're asking questions about the day. And so, like, to give you an example of like one of them that happened this past weekend was, what's one thing that stood out to you today that surprised you?
Mhm.
Or what's a hidden level of impact that you had on somebody else that nobody will
Mhm.
ever know, right?
Mhm.
And then the bonus is like, if today was a soundtrack, what would your soundtrack be named, right? And so we have this great time at dinner just having these conversations. But that's one of the ways I've chosen to create meaning. Another practical way is like, I do these things called fine dining with daddy. And so quarterly, we go out to a fine dining restaurant. I teach them a etiquette tip, right? And it's really, really cool, but it's really my hidden way to do a self-assessment. And so I asked them, I was like, how am I doing well as a dad? And so they give me a whole bunch of different things, da, da, da. But then I give one, if I could change one thing over the next quarter, or I could do differently, what could I do? And it provides that. And so I've learned and I've gotten better as a dad. And so that's one of the great things about creating meaning. And, well, is that meaningful for me? Yes. Will that ever be turned into a book of a fine dining with daddy? Probably not, right? But I know I'm creating a level of experiences and type of becoming the type of dad that it's internally aligned.
How long do you feel as though you've been making this internal alignment a practice for yourself? I know you have several. This
Yeah.
is your fourth book. So
Yeah.
I feel like sometimes when we get hyper focused on one idea, that's like the forefront of our minds. So have you been
Yeah.
practicing internal alignment throughout, like as you've been in this creative space and just kind
Yeah.
of being more focused on intentionality?
Yeah. Yes. And let me be very clear. I am not perfect at it, right?
Sure.
There's a lot more people who are vastly more intentional than I am. So I don't
Mhm.
want to create it like I'm the one who's creating meaning the most. Like, no, like I'm
Yeah.
struggling with this like everyone. But I do think it's tapping into those moments from when we were younger, right?
Yeah.
I'll give you one of the, I think the catalyst moment for me was when I was 11th grade over Christmas break.
Hmm.
And I remember a question came over me because I was acting like somebody who I wasn't, and I was trying to impress other people, and da, da, da. And I don't know where it came from, but paradigm question shifting. It was like, Justin, why are you trying to impress people that can't even give you scholarship money or a summer job?
Hmm.
All right. And it probably came from one of the speakers my mom made me go to. And then I remember I was like, well, what was meaningful for me? I used to dress up in bow ties and suits and all these kind of things. And so I started dressing like that to public school on the public bus. And people were like, what are you doing? Right. But I didn't care because my why began to shape who I was. And so I think that those were the moments that it was like a catalyst moment. But I think throughout my life, I've had these different catalyst moments about how do I lean into more intentionality. When I was in college, I started leaning into intentionally getting therapy, right? And now I've leaned in more. And so if I could give you our framework that's research backed to help people is our create meaning model, and it's simply choose, commit, cultivate. Choose, commit, cultivate. So we choose to take ownership. What control the controllables? Like, what is this about me? What can I change? What can I do? Because I can't change other people. I can't even change situations at times, but I can change
Sure.
myself and how I show up. Commit to build consistency, right? And that's what are the small intentional habits that I'll commit to, like the fine dining with daddy or the dinner time, right? And then the last one is to cultivate, and that's around growing intentionally, and it's asking the question about how do I create my own resilience and refinement rhythm. And sometimes what I love about cultivation, a big part of cultivation is cutting away. It's realizing where you've been spending time in places that actually aren't serving the people you love nor yourself. And so, but it is that rhythm of consistently doing that and right back to create. It creates meaning right back to choose to take ownership.
Absolutely. One final thing I want to talk about before we wrap up here is that in your title, let me go back to my subtitle here. So it's Stop Chasing, Start Creating, a timeless fable on mindset, resilience, and meaningful work. I want to hone in on the word resilience and
Yeah.
how when we stop chasing and start creating, that we are building resilience. Like, what does
Yeah.
that look like and why is it important?
Yeah. So internal resilience, where it's asking the question, resilience is one of those things that I think we've made like inspirational, but it's actually very practical. So if I give you 3 ways to be more resilient and just internally, one is by asking the question, creating a rhythm of asking the question, does this still serve me and the people that I love? Right? That's resilience because you're cultivating, and sometimes we keep doing things that are actually hurting us, or we do it because we've always done it that way. Right? But that's where the aspect of cultivation comes in. So that's number one for resilience. Number two, resilience, simply asking, where do I need to refine
Yeah.
to make this better? But what I
Mm.
find people do is that we don't create a rhythm of that. Right? I
Mhm.
challenge myself to, at a minimum, quarterly. The best case scenario is monthly, where I'm asking the question, how do I refine in my life?
Hmm.
Right? Where are the areas that are still working that aren't working? I used to challenge myself to get away, even if somebody can just do it annually, but to get away and simply ask the question, do I like who I've become?
Hmm.
Where do I need to grow and where do I need to cut? All right. So that's the second thing. And then the third thing is by also asking around the surrounding ourselves with people who are actually help us to be more resilient in the things that matter.
Hmm.
And
That's good.
so I've started intentionally. I get together now monthly with a group of guys who are also husbands and entrepreneurs, and we talk just about how we're doing in life. And so now I'm
Yeah.
surrounding myself, I'm creating my resilience ecosystem. And so that's why it's important, because it's not to keep doing, so sometimes resilience is seen as just to keep doing things. But what we think of resilience is to keep doing the right things and to cut away some of the things that aren't.
I think there are probably people listening and they desire to be impactful in those three areas, or to like hone into those three areas in their life, like to cut something out, to like have that community environment. And I can't remember, I'm sorry, the first one that you just
Yeah.
said, but all that to say, they live in fear because they're like, I don't know how to do that. Like, I don't know
Yeah.
how to take a first step, or I'm afraid of what's going to happen on the other side of this. I'm afraid to not live out. I don't know. There's something, I've said this before on the podcast, but there is comfort even in the chaos. Like, we're comfortable,
Yes.
at least we know it.
Yeah.
But taking that first step down the path of unknowing is really afraid. So
Yeah.
it keeps us stuck.
Yeah.
How do you encourage listeners to move through that?
I'm glad you brought that up, Diane. So,
Okay.
two quick ways. One, we created an actual challenge to help people with this. It's called the Meaningful 67 Challenge, and we'll make sure we have all the information for that. They're beta testing that. It's like these 7 meaningful habits that people have to do over the course of 67 days to create more meaning within their lives. Like read with impact, impact with meaning. Start your day off creating before you consume. So there's all these things that help to lead towards what I'm about to say now, which is the second thing. Is I want every single person who's listening to this to think of a time when they didn't know how to do something, and now they are proficient at it. Now they're really good at it. Whether it was riding a bike, for me, it's been cutting my son's hair, whether it's learning how to paint or pottery or whatever the thing might be. And I want you to imagine and go through the fear you felt when you first started that. And then what did you do to persist, to continue? So the first thing people can do, because it's not about eradicating the fear and what we feel, it's about rightly addressing it. And one of the things that we've seen in the research is it shows that when we are able to actually think about things that we've done, that we've overcome in times past, it helps us in those moments of fear to ask, well, what would the harm be if I just took this one step? Yeah.
So good. And then on a personal note, I can see a lot of people in my life that, and even myself in some ways, it's like, oh, I don't know how to, maybe I will at this end. Yeah, I just don't want to take that step because I'm too afraid of what's going to be on the other side of it. But in the other side could be abundance. I think
Yes.
more often than not. Yeah, it's like, it's got to be better than this.
Yes.
Why not take the plunge?
Yes, but that's what I love. I love what you said, because we often, again, it's about controlling the controllables. I can't control what's on the other side of that step. Mm-hmm. And that's why internal alignment has to be so important around, is this meaningful for me? So I've been ducking Jeeps right now. I think today is number 138. I'm doing 365 days of ducking Jeeps with motivational messages.
Yeah.
And you know, one of the most fascinating things I realized through this, Diane, is that things that are meaningful don't always feel meaningful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true.
This 56 days where I was like, is this helping anybody? And I almost gave up and quit. And then day 57, I had a woman crying about the duck I gave her. She was going through a divorce, and it was elephant duck. And I wrote a message about something about handling hard conversations and closing, relationships, And she ran down and tracked my mom and us down out of Food Lion. And she was like, why are you doing this? And what is this for? And I saw her tears were really streaming through her eyes. I was like, was this meaningful for you? And she was like, you had no idea that I needed this message today.
Yeah.
And I think back to duck number 56, which I almost quit because it didn't feel meaningful. So I want to give to people who are struggling with the fear of the other side is, if it's meaningful for you, that's the thing that you can control. Right? I sometimes say hi to people in grocery stores and thank cashiers. Sure. And 9 times out of 10, the cashiers appreciate it. But there's sometimes that people just look at me like, do I not do it for the one that didn't receive it? Do I do it for the 9 who did? Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. And so that's the thing I think that can help all of us, is just asking, am I doing this from internal alignment, and allow what may come to come?
Yeah. Yeah. We never know, again, what's on the other side of what it is that we're doing. And even with your post, I mean, obviously you were posting something fun from your trip to Curacao, but it had impact on someone in a way that you didn't know. So yeah, I think that's a really important takeaway here as well. All right. Well, Justin, you've given us so much to think about. For listeners that want to connect with you online and grab a copy of this book to go in a little bit more in depth, where can they do so?
Yeah. So you can go to workmeaningful.com just to find out more information about us. And then Stop Chasing, Start Creating is all over the place. So you can find it online, Amazon, Barnes Noble, blah, blah, blah. And I just love, send me an email. Shoot me an email at justin@workmeaningful.com if you have a question or want to dive in deeper, or because I love that. And we'll have all the notes and things for people if you're interested in the Meaningful 67 Challenge or the Meaningful One. It is one really practical way to help people for habit formation, identity formation, and discipline formation. So those would be the places I would encourage.
Yeah, absolutely. And that last conversation, I respectfully disagree. The lost art of disagreeing well. I'm going to be sure to include that in the show notes because I absolutely love that last conversation. So important, especially in today's day and age, just respectfully disagreeing. We don't have that art that we used to. Well, actually, maybe it was never around. I don't know. We just need good practice. I'm not going to let you go quite yet. I'm going to ask you these final two questions that I ask everyone here at the very end. I don't think we did this last time because I think you were on my show when I rebranded to Clear Intention. So we're going to find out here. The first one is, what has been a beneficial resource in your life that you want to share with the listeners?
Oh, wow. It's been really clear. I've continued to read Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl.
Oh,
really good book. Yeah, it is one of the books that's been, I think, had a catalyst impact on me. And I love, I'm butchering the statement, but the sentiment is true, is that everything can be taken from a person except one thing: the freedom to choose one's response. And that came from a Holocaust survivor. And so really, really powerful. So Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl.
Excellent. Well, I totally agree. All right. Last question. What is something you can't stop talking about?
My kids. They're going into middle school and high school. We just had open houses, and we also just came back from Aruba. We did a family photo shoot on the beach. We went ATVing, and so I was at the gym this morning, and I was showing them pictures of like the family photo shoot, and I was like, so just talking about my kids is something I can't stop talking about.
Well, yeah, I talk about my kids too, because as we were interrupted by my kids here just a minute ago.
Which I love. My dog is trying to interrupt me, so I've had to pet him a couple times, but yes.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. My last conversation was on interruptions in motherhood, and my son came in and started rolling around in my bed during that conversation. So this is just real life over here. Yeah.
I love it.
Well, I thank you so much. And again, I will be sure to include everything we talked about in the show notes. Definitely get over the Meaningful 67 to me so I can include that as well. Yeah. But again, I just always appreciate your encouragement. You're so wise and thoughtful, and I just really appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Diane. You are awesome, and thank you for the heart you bring to podcasting.